Hey everyone, and welcome. There are some books that just hit different, right? They don't just give you information, they transform the way you see yourself and the world around you. And for me, one of those truly life-changing reads has been The Gifts of Imperfection by Brené Brown. Just the title alone, let go of who you think you're supposed to be and embrace who you are. It's an invitation, a call to action that truly grabs you from the start. This isn't your typical self-help book filled with quick fixes or how-to lists. It's a deep dive into what it really means to live a wholehearted life. And believe me, it's a journey you'll want to take. So what's this book all about? Well, at its core, Brené Brown, who's a researcher, writer, and professor, argues that owning our story and loving ourselves through that process is the bravest thing we will ever do. Her entire work, spanning over a decade, centers on this idea of wholehearted living, which she defines as engaging in our lives from a place of worthiness. It's about cultivating courage, compassion, and connection, not just as lofty ideals but as daily practices that help us embrace our imperfections and truly believe that we are enough. Now you might be thinking, worthiness, what does that even mean? And that's exactly where Bria starts to unpack things. She explains that worthiness is the feeling that we're enough just as we are, and that we're worthy of love and belonging. This isn't something you earn or achieve later, like I'll be worthy when I lose 20 pounds or when I get that promotion. No, she insists that we're worthy of love and belonging now, right this minute, exactly as we are. This concept fundamentally changes how we approach our lives because so many of us spend our time hustling for worthiness, constantly performing, perfecting, pleasing, and proving ourselves to others. And here's the kicker, this hustle often keeps us from living with our whole hearts. One of the big reasons we get caught in this worthiness hustle is something Brené has studied for years: shame. She defines shame as the intensely painful feeling or experience of believing that we're flawed and therefore unworthy of love and belonging. It's a universal human emotion, but it thrives in secrecy, silence, and judgment. When we bury our stories, shame metastasized. She makes a crucial distinction here between shame and guilt. Guilt is I did something bad, which can be a motivator for change. But shame is I am bad, which corrodes our belief in our ability to do better. Shame, she points out, is linked to a whole host of destructive behaviors, from depression and addiction to violence and bullying. So how do we deal with this powerful emotion? Brené introduces the concept of shame resilience, which is the ability to recognize shame, move through it constructively, and maintain our worthiness and authenticity. It's about understanding what triggers shame for us, reality checking those never good enough messages, and crucially, reaching out and sharing our stories with people we trust and speaking shame out loud. She even shares a personal, really relatable story about an email she received criticizing a photo she posted online. Calling it eguts, her initial reaction was to be mean and nasty back, which should cause her default setting when feeling hurt. But after a powerful conversation with her friend Laura, she realized that true courage in that moment wasn't retaliating, it was acknowledging her hurt and not hurting back. Choosing to let go and not even respond to the email. That, she learned, was practicing shame resilience in real time. It means letting ourselves be vulnerable and open to connection, even if it carries the risk of getting hurt. Another huge barrier to wholehearted living, and often a birthplace of shame, is perfectionism. Brené makes it clear perfectionism is not the same as healthy striving or trying your best. Instead, she calls it a 20-ton shield we lug around, thinking it will protect us from blame, judgment, and shame. But in reality, it keeps us from taking flight and often leads to anxiety, depression, and even what she calls life paralysis, missing opportunities because we're too afraid to put anything imperfect out into the world. Perfectionism is all about seeking approval and acceptance from others, whereas healthy striving is self-focused, about how we can improve. It's an unattainable goal because there is no such thing as perfect, and it's addictive because when we inevitably experience shame, we just try to be more perfect, rather than questioning the faulty logic itself. To combat perfectionism, Brené emphasizes the importance of self-compassion. Drawing on Dr. Kristen Neff's work, she explains that self-compassion involves three elements: self-kindness, being warm and understanding towards ourselves when we suffer; Common humanity, recognizing that suffering and inadequacy are part of the shared human experience, and mindfulness, taking a balanced approach to negative emotions, neither suppressing nor exaggerating them. This resonated deeply with me because it highlights that being kind to ourselves isn't selfish, it's how we build a reservoir of compassion to extend to others. As the beautiful letter code lyric she shares says, there is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. Our imperfections, our inadequacies, they're what make us human and connect us. The book then dives into 10 guideposts for wholehearted living, each dismantling a common barrier and offering a path forward. We've touched on cultivating authenticity, letting go of what people think, and cultivating self-compassion, letting go of perfectionism. She also talks about cultivating a resilient spirit, which she strongly links to spirituality. And by spirituality, she doesn't necessarily mean religion, but rather recognizing and celebrating that we're all inextricably connected to each other by a power greater than all of us. Grounded in love and compassion, this belief, she argues, is the foundation for resilience, which allows us to bounce back from adversity and move forward. This resilient spirit also requires cultivating hope and letting go of numbing. Hope, she explains, isn't just a feeling, it's a way of thinking, a cognitive process involving setting realistic goals, figuring out pathways to achieve them, and believing in ourselves. It's a learned skill, often passed down through relationships characterized by boundaries, consistency, and support. And when it comes to numbing, this was a huge revelation for me. We cannot selectively numb emotions. If we numb the painful feelings, fear, grief, disappointment, we also numb the positive ones like joy. So all those things we do to take the edge off: food, alcohol, overworking, staying busy, endless scrolling online, they might dull the pain, but they also dull our capacity for joy. This led her to realize that when we lose our tolerance for discomfort, we'll lose joy. This brings us to cultivating gratitude and joy, and letting go of scarcity and the fear of the dark. You see, joyful people aren't just happy, they actively practice gratitude. Happiness, she clarifies, is often tied to external circumstances, while joy is deeply connected to spirit and gratitude, a good mood of the soul. The opposite of joy, surprisingly, isn't sadness but fear. Our fear of something bad happening, that other shoe dropping, can prevent us from fully embracing moments of intense joy. It's the scarcity mindset, the belief that we're not enough or don't have enough, that fuels this fear and prevents gratitude. Instead, she invites us to choose sufficiency, the knowing that there is enough and that we are enough. The guideposts continue to unpack how to live wholeheartedly. We explore cultivating intuition and trusting faith, moving beyond the need for certainty. Intuition, she clarifies, isn't mystical, it's our brain rapidly processing information and giving us a gut feeling. But our need for certainty often silences this inner voice, making us seek external validation or rush into decisions. And faith, it's not about having all the answers or blindly believing. Instead, faith is a place of mystery, where we find the courage to believe in what we cannot see and the strength to let go of our fear of uncertainty. This really resonated with me, especially when she quoted theologian Richard Rohr, who pointed out that many religious people often insist on answers and certainty, thinking they are people of faith, while real faith involves living with mystery and doubt. Then there's cultivating creativity, letting go of comparison. Breen passionately argues that there's no such thing as creative people and non-creative people, only people who use their creativity and people who don't. And unused creativity, she warns, doesn't just disappear, it festers as resentment and fear. Our unique contributions come from our creativity, and making meaning requires making art in some form, whether it's cooking, writing, dancing, or even rebuilding an engine. What often stops us? Comparison, which she calls the thief of happiness. It forces us into this fit-in and stand-out paradox, where we're constantly measuring ourselves against others, draining our energy for what truly matters. Next up are cultivating play and rest, letting go of exhaustion as a status symbol and productivity as self-worth. This one really hit home for me. We live in a society that glorifies being busy and constantly productive. But Breen, drawing on Dr. Stuart Brown's work, reveals that play is not an option. The opposite of play is depression. It's as vital for our health and functioning as rest. And rest itself, she emphasizes, isn't a luxury. Insufficient sleep is linked to chronic diseases and stress. Her family even made a list of their ingredients for joy and meaning, and found that by prioritizing those simple things, sleep, time off, cooking, being present, they were already living their dream list, rather than constantly striving for future accomplishments. It's a radical act to choose play and rest in our overhectic world. We also learn about cultivating calm and stillness, letting go of anxiety as a lifestyle. Breen shares how her own anxiety manifested physically, forcing her to confront it. Calm, she explains, is about bringing perspective and mindfulness to situations, managing emotional reactivity. Stillness isn't about emptying your mind of thoughts, but creating an emotionally clutter-free space to feel, think, dream, and question. The fear of what might come up when we slow down often keeps us frantically busy. But ultimately, anxiety feeds on itself. These practices help anxiety lose its hold, giving us clarity about what truly matters. Then there's cultivating meaningful work, letting go of self-doubt and supposed to. This guidepost reminds us that we all have gifts and talents. And when we cultivate and share them, we create meaning and purpose in our lives. Not using our gifts, she says, breeds distress and weighs us down with emptiness and frustration. The gremlins of self-doubt and the constant "you're supposed to be" the messages from society often get in the way. She encourages us to acknowledge these messages, write them down, and choose to act anyway. It's about defining what's meaningful for you, not letting culture dictate it. I love her adoption of Marcy Albor/careers idea researcher, storyteller, accountant, jeweler, allowing us to embrace our multiple passions and refuse to be confined by a single definition of work. As Howard Thurman famously said, don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive and go do it, because what the world needs is people who have come alive. Finally, the 10th guidepost is cultivating laughter, song, and dance, letting go of being cool and always in control. These ancient forms of expression create emotional and spiritual connection, reminding us that we are not alone. True laughter is knowing laughter, a shared understanding that heals and connects, not used for self-deprecation. Music stirs emotions and offers connection. And dancing, it's a full-body vulnerability that many people avoid because of the fear of being perceived as awkward, goofy, or out of control. But prioritizing being cool and in control over authentic self-expression is a betrayal of ourselves. Breen recounts a beautiful moment where her daughter was dancing the robot in a shoe store, and instead of shaming her, Breen joined in, choosing her daughter's joy over the judgment of onlookers. To watch us dance is to hear our hearts speak. She quotes the Hopi Indians, urging us to embrace this freedom. So what does all this mean for us right here, right now? This book is more than just a list of things to do. It's a profound shift in mindset. It invites us to choose authenticity and worthiness, which in our current world is an act of resistance and defiance. It's about understanding that vulnerability isn't a weakness, it's our most accurate measure of courage. It's about recognizing that the uncomfortable hard work is essential, because we cannot give our children what we don't have. If we want to truly experience love and belonging, we must believe in our own worthiness first. Breen's gifts of imperfection helps us see that the gifts of courage, compassion, and connection aren't just for a select few. They're born from embracing our imperfections, from acknowledging our vulnerabilities, and from the messy, beautiful process of truly seeing ourselves and letting ourselves be seen. The revolution she calls for is quiet, grassroots, and starts with each of us saying, "My story matters because I matter." It's choosing to live our lives with our whole hearts, even when it's hard, even when we're afraid, because that's when we truly come alive. It's a continuous journey, a star we walk towards, never fully arriving, but always knowing we're heading in the right direction. And honestly, that feeling of being brave, afraid, and very, very alive, that's the real gift.